Talk about leadership. In this video, we're going to talk about the leadership model that I think applies for all practice owners, chiropractors, whatever you are at, you are deserved to be a leader. So let's get right to it. So let's talk about leadership in this video, because leadership is such a powerful thing. Because without leadership, we've already seen right now in public that without strong leadership, it could go into chaos very, very quickly. So one of the key elements is that what we have to do is we need to make sure we become strong leaders. Now, you might think, well, I didn't ask to be a leader, but the fact of the matter is this. When you are a practice owner or a business owner, whether you are a chiropractor, you are effectively a leader. And therefore, what you need to do, you need to kind of step into that role. And it is your responsibility now to learn everything you can to be a better leader. Why is that so important? Well, because a leader is required in your business. Without a strong leader, it goes into chaos. It doesn't move in the direction that you need it to be, you're also a leader as a chiropractor, which means you are a leader in your community, which is the patients that you take care of. You need to be a leader in that health field. And thirdly, if you're a chiropractor, you are a leader in our profession. So which means everything you do and everything you behave and everything you say will effectively change the opinions of what other people see and what they think of this profession. So whether you want to be a leader or not, unfortunately, we're thrust into leadership roles. And so one of the key elements, though, is that leadership isn't just about being strong, right? It isn't about strength. It is not always just about building better relationships. What I think a strong leader does is that they have to make decisive actions, and they also have to find a compromise between business and also the relationships they need to build. So I want to create a model here for you on what it takes to be a strong leader, to an effective leader that will actually create a better team, create better trust, and also have an effective leadership role to be able to lead people in the direction of where you want it to go. So this is what I want to kind of talk about in today's video. So let's get right to it. A couple of key elements is that what we need to look at is what are some of the types of leadership that can be and that you can identify yourself with. So let's kind of talk about two things, right? Number one, we can kind of talk about influence, right? I think that's really important, because influence is that reality is that influence matters a lot in this case, because if you don't have influence, what ends up happening is that I just wanted to check something and making sure. Oh, there you go. If you don't have influence, what happens is that you don't actually be able to move people. So we need to have some sort of influence for sure. The other thing is that you also need to have is focus, right? What are we focusing on? And leadership also has to have is what kind of focus do they actually have? So the key element here is that we got to decide, right, is that we have influence and we have focus. So let's kind of go right back to it and see where that goes. Well, the focus could be two elements, right? One, people can be focused on themselves, right? There's definitely leaders who do that. And then there's going to be focus on others and whatever priorities they are. There's also influence, however, right? The influence here is that what's really important is to kind of think about is the influence that you might have you actually have low influence. Let me just make sure I change the color here. Low influence and high influence. Now, if you're live here right now on particular live on any particular platform on YouTube or on Facebook, just type in the message in a comment. I'll be able to see it. So hopefully if you can't hear me for whatever reason, please let me know. But the key element here is that we kind of decide is that we have low influence and high influence. So what kind of leader are you? Well, we already kind of know if you are self-focused, I think what happens if you're self-focused and you have low influence, what I call term is you're basically a victim leader, right? A victim leader. And what I mean by a victim leader is that you kind of focus really only, you focus on yourself and you focus more on the problems that you're experiencing and kind of blaming everything, all the problems that are affecting you, rather than actually being effective leaders. We all know that that's not an effective leader. So, but what we also know is that you might have high influence, but you still focus on yourself. Let's not have to name any names, but we can kind of see, and I'll just choose the right color here. I think it becomes a fact that you become a tyrant, right? Because I think as a tyrant is what happens is that you are really focused on, you have massive influence for sure, but what ends up happening is that you are focused on yourself and you really you're trying to make everything about you, right? those two are not effective leadership and what we want to have. So what we want to do is we kind of move towards, we want to have focus on others. So what happens? So like oftentimes what happens is that you might have low influence, but your focus is on others. What ends up happening is that we do have those type of leadership. And I was one of those for sure, because I want to make sure I focus everybody on others, but I may not necessarily have great influence on my team. And what ends up happening is that we become really friendly, right? We are like a friendly type of leadership, right? Because we care about what other people think of us. We care about what our team think of us. Of course, that's important, right? But so here is what we're trying to do is we're doing and leading for the betterment of our relationships, right? And not that that's wrong, but we don't necessarily have great strength in terms of influence on getting them to do what we want to do, especially in our business, right? We're talking about teams that we're really friendly with, but we might not now in a position. The problem with that type of positioning is that we might not be able to tell them how they need to act or behave, or maybe it's hard for us to tell them that they've done something wrong, or maybe there's something that that pisses you off, but you can't say anything because you're too friendly, because you're trying to preserve, right? The focus is really on them and rather than the actual business or the other practice. So something to kind of think about. The last, and of course, what's important is that we have high influence, but also our focus is on others. And I think what it takes to be that type of leader is courage, right? We need to have a courageous leader to be able to do that. And what we're focused on this area here is that we're focusing on the betterment of the business itself, because, right? And the reason why that's important when you kind of think about this is the focus on the betterment of the business. Sorry, my handwriting is terrible, but focus on the business of the business, because we understand that the business, right, is the business is in effect the balance between two things. Is the balance of the advancement of a particular purpose of the business, but also the team, because without a business there is no team, and without a team there is no people we can serve. And so therefore that's why courageous leadership is required for us to move our agenda, for us to move our particular cause. And so what the next question is going, well, how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, I think it's definitely a balancing act. Right? It's definitely a balancing act, because what we need to kind of balance, there's two specific things we got to balance. We got to balance our relationships, right, with our team. Which is delicate, but we also need to kind of balance responsibility. And what I mean by responsibility is that you got responsibility as a business owner. And so that's really hard to kind of know that we're trying to advance this business. And one of the responsibilities of business owners is to earn a profit, which in previous episode, we kind of talked about in the responsibility of business. And it is responsible to earn a profit because the profit allows us to really advance the cause of the business and also serve and protect our employees and our team. So if we're kind of making sure we only focus on the relationships and not the responsibility of a business owner, then we're kind of run into trouble. So this fine balancing act really kind of puts us in a really bind. And so what happens is what we kind of have to consider is that we need to consider three specific things. And how we're going to need to consider this is that we need to really outline, right? This is more the how you become an effective leader, is we need to outline, I think, that you need to outline the roles, the responsibilities, and effectively your expectations of them. If you don't tell them the role specifically, your staff, you don't tell them their responsibility, and you don't tell them your expectations on them, they're never going to be able to match that, right? And oftentimes we only tell them the responsibilities, but we don't actually tell them what their role is in that responsibility, and we never tell them our expectations on them, which is a huge problem. And so what we really got to really think about is what is the roles and responsibility and expectations. So we first, in order for us to execute that, we obviously have to identify it. Sorry, I should probably put that up here. You need to identify it. You need to identify, my handwriting's terrible. So identify, ID, the roles and responsibility and the expectation. The second thing we need to learn how to then is communicate that effectively in a way that they fully understand. They got to be very clear and outlined what they are, so they actually know what the roles and responsibilities and expectations are. And thirdly, what has to happen is that it's got to be reinforced. Because if it's not reinforced, what ends up happening is that you're just going to have this conversation once and never have it again. That is not how we learn. That's not how teams are built. Teams need to know their roles and responsibility, and they need to kind of know effectively, continuously what they are over and over again. But I also need to think of a new model here. I wouldn't mind you considering this. Is that we talked about this being a courageous leader, but I think there's actually a fifth area that we can consider. The fifth area, I believe, is that we can sit up here, right? There is a fifth model, and it requires the focus to be on purpose or for a cause. And what that does, it requires sort of three elements. You need to kind of focus the purpose, the purpose and or the cause that's so what I call the primal purpose allows you to want people to kind of join you. But you need to kind of own that, because if now you have a purpose and drive to get to somewhere. The second thing it does is actually you have a team who are willing to sacrifice to be on purpose with you. And thirdly, you're going to then have a tribe of people to follow suit to want to join in this cause as well. And we can kind of see this loud and clear right now in today's age, with that you can see there's a cause that people are willing to be there and support. That is effectively becoming a purpose-driven leader. And when you can actually have a purpose, that actually goes to the next level of the courageous leader. And I believe that's like that level 5 leadership. And you can take that and you can actually learn from it and be able to implement that in your business. The question is for you today is, what leadership are you playing in your business? Now, if you own a business, this question is really important. And you might think, I'm an associate. I'm not sure if I apply to it. No, I already said at the beginning of it, this applies to you directly. Because you being an associate, you have a responsibility to be a leader in the business, but also in the profession and also in the community. So how do you serve? So answer this question for yourself is to go, where effectively am I? And more importantly, where do I need to move from and to and towards? Because when you can start doing that, we start changing our ability to be able to serve other people. So I'm Lawrence Tam from lawrencetam.com. I hope this video has been helpful to you. And make sure you continue to watch these videos on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn as well. See ya.
I am Dr. Miles Uphold, and I'm the owner and principal chiropractor of Up Chiropractic in Leederville, Western Australia. So my background is in triathlon, so I see a lot of athletes. I see a lot of athletes who are also running businesses and working in corporate kind of life. So lots of physical, mental, emotional stress and juggling it all. That's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. For me, for me, it's a part of the journey, and so it's a part of my growth. And I guess it's more the question for me is, why do I continue to get value from Nitro, and why do I continue to come is because very strong and distinct benefits, so those benefits are more about a couple of things. Like Lawrence definitely provides a really good insight from outside of my square. So it's kind of like one of those things where, they say, like the old story is like you never see the generals in the battle, So in any of the issues or problems that I might be facing in practice, it's me who's on the coalface and dealing with them, So to have that outside perspective is often key and has proven to be massively significant for me. So one of the things, for example, is that I always had this, I had done some, coaching in chiropractic years ago, and I really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it, like got a huge exchange out of it, and was really fulfilled by it, but just hadn't got back to it and couldn't really see it, and was kind of caught up in practice and that's when one of the treats I was at, like I realised that one of my skills and talents wasn't being utilised by me, and that I was in my own way and blocking my own fulfillment and contentment. So that was so then I started up that coaching program because basically whether Lawrence challenged me, I can't remember, or whether the group did, but it was more than that. It was more just the point of, no, hang on, this is something that you really love and enjoy and want and can see value and benefit in, and you want to be able to create impact and help others, and at the same time you get fulfillment from it. You know, this is one of the big things. Like, so one of the benefits of coming away to Nitro is definitely the people here. So it's about being with like-minded people, but being about people who want the same thing, which is like this growth mindset and willingness to support each other and hold each other accountable at the same time. So it's meaningful to me because I believe that we all have, you know, so much potential, but it's just whether we choose to use it or not. And so what it does is it gives me a bit of a catalyst and a drive, and seeing as well what others are doing and being inspired from that. And so for me, it's about reaching my own potential, about doing the best that I can with you know, my God-given talents and abilities, but also about being inspired by others in the group, which also fuels you know, further kind of growth and development. You know, for me, as in terms of the journey I'm on, as in, you know, what it allows me to do is it's allowed me to stay motivated, inspired, and on path about something bigger than myself. So it's not just a matter of, you know, previously in practice, I felt like I'd achieved a number of, you know, goals that I'd set, and so, you know, I was, for want of a better way to say it, like a little bit bored, or, you know, just kind of disengaged, I guess. And so what that's allowed me to do is become fulfilled again about my course of action and how I can make an impact. That's huge.